Welcome to Elite Expert Insider Podcast, where we will inspire, motivate, and educate entrepreneurs, innovators, and growth seekers. Brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, making the best and brightest in the industry #1 best-selling authors. 80% of people say they want to write a book. We're assuming that's the same for you. If so, contact us at www.eliteonlinepublishing.com and make your book a reality. Hey, it's Melanie Johnson along with Jen Foster for another great podcast for you. First, we want to remind you, hey, remember to subscribe to our podcast. Just hit that button right below and leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. And you know what? I struggle with this all the time. I don't know about you. Jen and I are constantly struggling with being overwhelmed and productivity and feeling like I'm drowning. Oh my gosh, I just feel like I'm drowning in emails. It takes me more time to delete the junk mail so I can see the stuff that's important. So we have somebody today who is going to tell us all the magic tricks of how to be more productive, to streamline our productivity. Emily Parks is with us today. She's been doing this since 2007. So she has ridden the wave of all of social media getting popular, LinkedIn hitting your box, all of the things that have been bombarding you, and she's has created new tips and tricks and strategies along the way. So before we get started, remember to subscribe again to our podcast. And of course, Jen and I own Elite Online Publishing. So if you're looking to become an author and use your book for a marketing tool for your business, we would love to help you do that. We make all of our authors #1 bestsellers. Matter of fact, last week we just had a book and it was #1, not just #1 in the US, but international. So go to our website and check us out. Emily, thank you for coming today and teaching us how to be more productive. I just can't wait. I think you're going to take a huge weight off of Jen and my shoulders.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Well, first tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this industry.
I have a background of years in college sports administration and operations, and then years in automotive dealership marketing, communications, publicity, things like that. But people were always coming up to me and saying, oh, you can always find your files so easy, or, oh, your calendar's so organized, or, oh, you always have things at your fingertips that you need, and can you show me how to do that, or can you set up my files for me? And going into Christmas of 2005, I read this article that was talking about how to have a stress-free holiday. And I started researching the author, and it was all about things that I was already helping people do. And I had this light bulb moment when I realized there was this entire industry of productivity and organizing that I was unaware of, and thought, oh, wait, I could get paid to do what I'm already doing for people. And when it's sort of something that comes natural to you, you don't realize it doesn't come natural to other people. And it has always been a joy to be able to share that with other people, but to actually create a business and different buckets where I'm helping people at different stages in their needs has been really enjoyable and rewarding.
Well, tell us, let's dive into it. What are some of your favorite technology tips to stay productive at the office place?
Well, it's funny because you mentioned email earlier, but regardless of whether you're talking about email or your electronic documents or your paper files, it's just so much easier to find what you need when there's less that you're digging through. It's clutter, and clutter can creep into our lives in so many different ways, from calendar commitments to things on our to-do list and everything in between. So step #1 is to get rid of the clutter. Get rid of the clutter. Keep only what is accurate, applicable, useful, bringing you joy, or difficult to find with an online search. For example, I love sunflowers. So I have a lot of sunflowers. Now, that's not clutter to me because that's bringing me joy. But I want to make sure that it's not getting in the way of getting to the necessary information for living my life, doing what I need to do, and getting things accomplished. But while you're editing the contents of your space, I want you to keep two things in mind. #1, always take into account any legal ramifications. And
Mhm.
number two, consider what needs to be in your space versus what should be in a communal area. If you're working with other team members, if you have colleagues, if you have an assistant, could things be in your shared space and not creating clutter within your space? Second of my favorite technology tips is actually about the finding things. So once you get rid of the clutter, it's still really important to realize that it's a whole lot easier to find something in an electronic form than it is in a paper form. When
Mhm.
you have paper file folders, you have to look through each page, page by page, to make sure you find the
Mhm.
right page and to hope you put it in the right folder. But with electronic, you can search for things. And oh, how revolutionary it was when we had search created in all of our safekeeping tools. And there are backup solutions that automatically back up all of your program files and things like that. But what I'm talking about are your online file repositories. Things like Dropbox, Google Drive, iCloud, Spider Oak, SugarSync, things like that, where you could even use your company's server for shared files, but making sure that they're accessible across all your devices so you can easily find and not waste time searching for what you need. So what I oftentimes recommend to people is just find a scanner that works for you. Maybe it's a physical scanner like a Doxy or a Fujitsu, or maybe it's an app on your phone like Scannable. And then last, as far as the technology tips that I thrive on each day, is assign homes. You'll oftentimes hear organizers say, oh, put it in its home, or make sure at the end of the day you put it back in its home. But the key is when you know where that electronic file is living, or if you know what folder that email goes into, you can more easily find it later. And as you're
Yeah.
doing this, particularly with the physical items in your workspace, take into account the safety considerations, because you don't want to create a tripping hazard or have cables across your workspace and things like that that would really distract you from getting things done.
Yeah, we actually just had this yesterday. We couldn't find a document in our files, and I couldn't remember the name of it. So it wasn't that it wasn't in the right place, it was that I couldn't remember the name. And we had called it something weird, like instead of mastermind, we called it forum or something. And finally, I remembered I had printed it out for a class that I did and found it in a drawer that I had put it with the other printables that I'd printed, and it was right where I had left it. And then I was like, oh, now I can easily find it. And I went, typed in forum, and there it was. So I just couldn't remember the name. That's how it goes sometimes.
But
Well,
it's like magic when those
yeah,
triggers go in our head and we go, oh, wait, that's the word. That's the naming convention that I used.
right, right. Well, tell us a little bit of that email clutter. I mean, we get so bombarded with so many emails. I mean, some days I wake up and I have, 93 emails, and of course, some are subscriptions I've subscribed to, some are spam, and some are actual real clients emailing me. So how do we filter through all that chaos? What kind of tips do you have for us?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked about email, because the average American worker right now gets about 150 emails a day.
Wow.
Most of my clients are averaging between 300 and 500 emails a day. So
Wow.
they come to me and they go, Emily, how can I even read all of these, let alone
Yeah.
respond to all of these? So first is to cut down on the amount of emails coming into your inbox.
Hmm.
I always suggest unsubscribe from subscriptions that you're no longer reading. Maybe it was appropriate for your life and your needs when you signed up for it, but maybe life has changed. Or maybe you got subscribed to it by buying something from a company or doing business with someone, and well, you don't need that nudge towards buying another dress or another set of shoes. And so maybe unsubscribing for that would help. But whatever the reason, if you aren't reading the emails, they're only creating clutter in your inbox. So unsubscribe. Then it sounds sort of counterintuitive, but think about the fact that the fewer emails you send out, then the fewer emails you get back in. If you're going back and forth with someone, I sort of have this unwritten rule that if it's more than 2 times of going back and forth, I need to just pick up the phone and talk to them. because it's creating excess clutter in my inbox. If I need to have a written documentation of that conversation, I can just send them a confirmation after the phone call saying, oh, it was great talking to you. Here's what I took away from that conversation. But if I keep the conversation going on via email, the discussion just creates clutter. But email clutter doesn't stop with the messages you're getting in. There's also the email clutter of what's kept in your inbox. I've been brought into clients' offices when there's 70,000, 80,000, 100,000 emails in their inbox. And so there's so much time and energy spent just getting distracted by the visual clutter, not to mention the time it takes to dig through those to find out what needs their attention. How can you get things done when you're reading and rereading and reprocessing information? So I have a very strong challenge for each of you as well as all of your listeners. I want to encourage you to switch from checking your email to actually processing what's coming into your inbox. Don't look at your inbox until you're really ready to address what's newly arrived. That means don't pick up your phone, skim what's coming in, and respond to only what you consider the hot topics. I want you to look at it and actually move the emails that require action to your to-do list. Move the time commitments to your calendar. Move those emails that you just want to keep for later reference into your folders, and trash what you don't want to keep. Those items that are no longer accurate, applicable, useful, bringing you joy. Get rid of them. And then as you're processing your inbox, think strategically about those folders. If you have too many folders, that's just more clutter. That's more places for things to hide. There's this nice balancing act of, if you have enough folders for everything to have a home, but not so many that they're too specific or there's duplication, then you don't have to think, okay, where am I going to put this so that I can find it later? If I put it in this folder, I might not think of it, but it could go in this folder. The fewer folders you have and the more simplistic your filing system is, then the easier it is to know where to put the email and where to find it later.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
great advice. And, we've had an instance where we've had a team that we've been working with. So there's been Jen and I plus 4 other people. So we've got 6 people. And the email, sometimes I open up my email, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's 20 emails from all the different people on this team project. And some are just, okay, thanks, that was great. Or I have a quick question. And it's just overwhelming to me. I feel like I just want to go in and delete them all. It's like, if it's just not pertinent, like I don't need to have a thank you in there. How do you deal with a team of people that are working on a project? Any suggestions for that?
So step one when you're pulling a team together to work on a project is to establish the email etiquette guidelines. Things like, be considerate about reply all. Does everybody on the recipient list really need to receive this message that you're sending everybody? Also, the courtesies of thank you or got it or those kind of things, does that really require an email? Or could it be the next time you see each other, thanks for this? Or maybe you set up, if you want to make sure the person's received it, you set up a read receipt so that you yourself get confirmation they read it, but not everybody has to be able to get that. But making sure that people within the team are consistent and cognizant of the impact of communication so that they are short, sweet, to the point, and communicating only what needs to be communicated. And one shorthand that really is helpful for people is if it's one sentence, rather than putting it in the body of the email, you can use the subject line and then just put EOM at the end of it. So it's end of message. That way people know they don't even need to open it. They can deal with the message straight from the subject line.
That's a great idea. And if you have that protocol and people know what that means, it's a lot easier for people to check their emails. Yeah, sometimes those threads get really long and you have to go back and look at all the different, is any of this relative to me? And usually sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
Or even
and the big takeaway for me on what you were saying about setting those expectations is that we're human beings. If someone hasn't told us what to expect from them, we fill in the blanks. And every person on that team is going to come from a different background, a different thought process, different expectations. So if the leader of the team sets the expectations on communication from the get-go, you're not encouraging difference of accord amongst the team members about what they expect from each other.
I love that. That's great. So let's move on to something. So some days I know you know how to do this and I need help. So I feel like my to-do list is never ending. So what are some ways to tackle those tasks?
Each day, we have only 1,440 minutes. That's it. And that number seems like a lot, but within those 1,440 minutes, we have to eat and sleep and exercise and bathe, and solve all the world's problems. So it really is a real challenge to make sure that we get the important things done and craft the life that we want to live, because that's in our control to craft the lives we want. So step one, first, be clear about what you're trying to achieve. It's amazing when I take time to actually dream and visualize where I want to be and how I want to live my life. I can translate those dreams into specific goals. And with the specific goals, we really are more likely to succeed because we know what we desire. And then when we veer off track a little bit, we can realign and recommit to our direction no matter what curveballs that life throws at us. Second, and really importantly, there's not a someday on our calendars. So when we have our to-do list and we go, okay, I'll get to that when there's free time, or I'll get to that someday, or I know I'll circle back around to that. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but not someday. So being very specific about our deadlines for each step in the process can be really important. And then speaking of those steps, it's really important to make sure that the steps are tasks, not projects. For example, planning a party is a project. It can't be checked off your to-do list in one foul swoop. So most people will leave that lingering on the to-do list because it's overwhelming. They don't know where to start. But if you break it down into truly manageable action items, then you can go through each of those in the order of priority and really check them off. So maybe not plan a party, but maybe narrow down available locations to the top 3 choices. That you can do at one point in time, and it's much more of an individual task. Then with each of those individual tasks, start them with a verb. There's a lot of research behind our psychology with action and to-do lists. And if you start it with grocery shopping, instead of write out grocery list or drive to grocery store or things like that, the verb will be a greater initiative and really move you towards behavior. Then when you're writing out those tasks, make sure that you sort of have an idea as far as how long each is going to take. That way, if a meeting finishes up 10 minutes early, you can plug a 10-minute task into that. But if you don't know how long things are going to take, it might take you 5 minutes to figure out your 10-minute tasks, and by then you only have 5 minutes left. Speaking of that list, this is super hugely important. Our brains are meant for thinking, not remembering. So make sure you get those to-dos out of your brain and into a documented form. Maybe it's paper, maybe it's electronic. They both have their pros and cons, but your brain's not a reliable capture tool. And then most importantly, make sure that you have one to-do list, one capture tool for all the tasks that need to get done. Each of us is one person, whether we're at work, at home, volunteering, attending to our self-care, mind, body, spirit, whatever, we're one person. So if we have to-dos on Post-it notes, on the napkin in the car, in the notepad from our meeting, in our emails, or scribbled on our hand, then we bleed minutes by looking for what needs to be done instead of actually plowing through that one to-do list. And with only 1,440 minutes, we don't want to waste minutes figuring out how to use those minutes.
I find myself too, like blocking things together. Like, okay, all my return emails are over here. That goes in this pile. All my phone calls that I have to make goes in this pile instead of having it just in this running list. So then it's like, okay, it's phone call time. Now from this time to this time, we're going to do all my phone calls. And I find that so much helpful. And I love about the verb that you said. I think that's even great for sales. When you're trying to connect with clients and sending that email out, that's more effective to say, it's that call to action. This is what I want you to do. Putting that on there. So that's great. We've had things that you can do to clean out your space, get rid of your clutter in your physical space, just kind of to recap here, assign everything a home. And my big thing is keeping it in its home. I get a little lazy and I think, oh, it doesn't go back in its space. I'm looking for some tips too, to organize for us, like what Jen was saying. Gosh, I couldn't remember what I called this thing. So is it having that overall category for things like in Google Drive or in Dropbox or in Evernote, having your categories, the things that can go in that you can find it easier? What are tips for like, oh my gosh, I know I created this document, but I don't know what it is or what I called it or where to find it?
Well, when you're sharing files between the two of you or any team atmosphere, this first step is to communicate. What are the words that we typically would use with this particular project or this particular type of file? And then create what I call a naming convention. So this is the order of those keywords we're going to put into the name of this type of file. This is the order for this type of file. Maybe for podcast recordings, it would be year, then month, and then actual subject of the podcast or person being interviewed in the podcast. But making sure that there's communication so that you can create consistency, and then using the words that y'all use when you converse, because if you're using that in conversation, you can more likely find it. Then also keep in mind that depending on the platform you're using, you may also have the ability to search within the document. For example, if you have a PDF in Dropbox, you can actually search all the words in it instead of just searching for the name of the document.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, you gave us so much information today. I love it. And just going back again, make sure that you've got those groups, that you use verbs, that you're setting up everything. And the email thing I'm telling you, is invaluable. Look up a video for someone if you have Gmail or you have Yahoo, whatever email service you have, of how to set up those categories and take
filters.
We're going to go through and clean up all of I have way too many folders.
Yeah, unsubscribe and filter your emails into folders.
Yes. So tell us where we can find you and people can get more information from you, Emily.
Oh, ladies, I'm so glad this was helpful, and I like to provide useful content for people that they can truly implement immediately with solutions. So some of that is through my website, which is organizeforsuccess.biz, like I want to organize for success. And you can find directly from my website links to each of my social media platforms. I'm active across many different places like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. And then I also have a blog as well as a resources page. Both are accessible from my website, and both provide free ongoing tips for everybody.
Great. Well, we'll put that link up at the bottom of this video for those watching on YouTube. And those that are listening, say it again one more time, organize for success.
.biz. Yes,
all right.
You are correct.
Great. So those that are listening, you can go to that website and get all those tools. Thank you so much, Emily, for being here.
Thank you, ladies. This was wonderful. I appreciate it.
Terrific. Well, remember to subscribe to our podcast, because we're always giving you great information to educate you, motivate you, inspire you, and make you more successful. So make sure you tune in, leave us a note, and always subscribe to our podcast. And if you're looking to write a book and becoming a best-selling author, contact Elite Online Publishing. They'll teach you how to market your book and use it for your business to get even more clients. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
If you'd like to create the most powerful advertising tool for your business, contact us at eliteonlinepublishing.com, where we will help you create, publish, and make your book a #1 bestseller, and show you how to get new leads and more revenue for your business. If you'd like to check us out on our Facebook page, we have a free book for you as our gift. Just go and click Free Book. Remember to subscribe and leave a comment for our podcast. We would love to hear from you.